I used to be the kind of person who would talk for hours about the things I loved. My friends called me the passionate one in our group, always ready with a recommendation, a theory, or a detail nobody else noticed. That changed when I met Ryan. The first time it happened, we were at his apartment, 3 months into dating. I'd brought over my favorite book series, a fantasy epic I'd read 7 times since high school. The covers were worn, pages dog-eared with notes in the margins. I'd never shown anyone these books before, the way I'd marked them up, theorized in them. It felt like showing him a piece of my soul. "This is what you're so excited about," he laughed, flipping through the pages. "Isn't this for teenagers? All these dragons and magic spells?" He tossed the book back onto the coffee table. "I thought you were more mature than that. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you." That comment hung in the air between us. I remember feeling my cheeks burn, that familiar tightness in my throat. I laughed it off, slid the books back into my bag. "Yeah, they're silly," I said. "Just a nostalgic thing." But something shifted that day. A door closed inside me. The pattern repeated itself with everything I loved. My favorite reality cooking show? Mind-numbing garbage for people who can't cook. The indie bands I'd followed. For years? Pretentious hipster music. My collection of vintage postcards? A waste of money and space. At first, I defended these things passionately. I'd explain why the cooking show actually taught incredible techniques, how the bands had helped me through my darkest times, the history behind each postcard. But Ryan always had a comeback, a dismissive laugh, an eye roll. Eventually, it became easier to just not mention the things I loved around him. Our relationship settled into a routine where we only discussed things Ryan approved of. His favorite sports teams, TV shows he deemed worthy, music he considered sophisticated. When topics I enjoyed came up, I'd go quiet, nodding along, offering little more than or yeah to the conversation. Last Friday night, we were at dinner with his work friends when someone mentioned the new superhero movie I'd been secretly excited about. Before I could stop myself, I mentioned I had tickets for the opening weekend. "Wait, you're into that childish crap?" Ryan laughed, looking around the table. "She has all these weird interests. Last week she was watching some cartoon about singing. Animals or something. It was a critically acclaimed animated film about family trauma," I said quietly, but no one heard me over his laughter. The dinner continued, but I'd checked out. I smiled when appropriate, laughed on cue, but inside I felt hollow. When we got home, Ryan immediately noticed. "What's with the silent treatment?" he asked, throwing his keys on the counter. "You've barely said 2 words since dinner." "I'm just tired," I replied automatically. "No, you're being weird. Is this about what I said about that superhero movie?" It was just a joke. I stood in the kitchen, hands gripping the edge of the counter. 5 years of swallowed words rose in my throat. "It's not just the movie," I said finally. "It's everything I like. You make fun of all of it." Ryan rolled his eyes. "You're being dramatic? I tease you a little bit and suddenly I'm the villain?" "It's not teasing when it's constant," I said. "When was the last time you said anything positive about something I enjoy?" He opened his mouth, then closed it, genuinely thinking. "I don't know, probably last week." "You're being sensitive." "Name one thing," I challenged. "One thing I love that you haven't criticized." The silence stretched between us, growing heavier by the second. "Exactly," I whispered. "So what?" he finally said. "Your interests are kind of embarrassing sometimes. I'm doing you a favor by pointing it out instead of letting you make yourself look stupid." Those words hit me like a physical blow. I'd spent nearly my entire relationship hiding parts of myself, feeling ashamed of, the very things that once made me feel alive. And he thought he was doing me a favor? "I'm going to stay at Emma's tonight," I said, my voice surprisingly steady as I headed to the bedroom to pack a bag. Seriously? You're overreacting. Ryan followed me. Why are you so quiet all the time? If something's bothering you, you should just tell me. I stopped packing and turned to face him. Ryan, I used to tell you. I used to talk about the things I loved all the time, and you shot down every single one. So I stopped. That's not fair, he protested. I listened to you. You hear me? I corrected. But you don't listen. As I zipped up my overnight bag, Ryan blocked the doorway. This is ridiculous. You can't leave over something so small. But it wasn't small. Years of dismissed passions, belittled interests, and swallowed excitement had built a wall between us brick by brick. I just hadn't acknowledged it until now. I need some space, I said firmly. Please move. Reluctantly, he stepped aside. As I headed for the door, he called after me. I don't understand why you're making such a big deal about this. His voice cracked slightly. If I knew it bothered you so much, I would have stopped. I paused, hand on the doorknob. That's just it, Ryan. You shouldn't need me to tell you that constantly making fun of the things someone loves is hurtful. That should be obvious. The drive to Emma's was a blur. My mind replayed 100 different moments. Ryan laughing at my excitement over a book release, mocking my favorite songs, questioning why anyone would waste time on childish hobbies. Emma opened her door, took one look at my face, and pulled me into a hug. Ryan again? She asked. I nodded against her shoulder. Come in, let's talk about it. She guided me inside, where, to my surprise, a small group of our friends was gathered, apparently for a movie night. Is that the illustrated fantasy collection you mentioned? I asked, spotting a familiar book on Emma's coffee table. Yeah. Her face lit up. I finally found a copy. Want to see? For the next 20 minutes, we pored over the illustrations together, theorizing about hidden symbols and alternate interpretations. Our friends joined in, adding their own thoughts. No one rolled their eyes. No one made me feel childish. My phone buzzed with messages from Ryan, but I put it aside. For the first time in years, I was talking about something I loved without bracing for ridicule. Later that night, as everyone else slept, I sat on Emma's balcony and realized something important. I'd grown so accustomed to hiding my passions that I'd forgotten who I was. The quiet person Ryan complained about wasn't really me. She was a creation born from 1,000 tiny cuts to my authentic self. The question now was whether our relationship was worth saving. Could Ryan learn to respect the things that made me who I was? Did I even want to try teaching him? Or was it time to find someone who would celebrate my passions instead of tearing them down? I didn't have the answers yet. But as I watched the sunrise from Emma's balcony, one thing became clear. I wasn't going to be quiet anymore. Quiet. Morning light filtered through Emma's curtains as I scrolled through Ryan's messages. 15 texts ranging from anger to confusion to apology. The final one sent at 3 a.m. I don't get why this is suddenly such a big deal, but it wasn't sudden. That's what he couldn't understand. Emma appeared with coffee, sitting cross-legged on the floor beside me. You know what I realized last night? I haven't heard you talk about your photography in months. Photography, my first love. The walls of my apartment used to display my work, abandoned buildings reclaimed by nature, strangers caught in moments of unguarded joy, storm clouds gathering over city skylines. When Ryan moved in, he suggested we redecorate with more sophisticated art. My photographs now sat in storage boxes under our bed. I stopped bringing my camera places, I admitted. Ryan always complained it slowed us down, or that I was trying. Too hard to be artistic. Emma's expression darkened. That's not okay. Remember our road trip to Portland? You took that amazing shot of the lighthouse at dawn. You were so excited you couldn't sleep the night before. The memory hit me with surprising force. That version of myself seemed from another lifetime. Enthusiastic, unapologetic, alive. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I need to get my camera, I said suddenly, standing up. Now? Are you sure? I nodded. Ryan's at work. I can grab some things without another confrontation. 30 minutes later, I unlocked our apartment door, half expecting Ryan to have ignored his schedule and waited for me. The space was empty, exactly as I'd left it, except for a bouquet of roses on the kitchen counter with a note. I'm sorry you're upset. Let's talk tonight. Not, I'm sorry for what I said. Just sorry I was upset. As if my feelings were the problem, I headed straight for the bedroom closet, pulling out the storage boxes. My fingers trembled slightly as I lifted the lid off the first container, revealing stacks of my photographs. I hadn't looked at them in over a year. There was the lighthouse Emma mentioned, a series of close-ups capturing my grandmother's hands as she taught me to knit. Rain-slicked city streets reflecting neon signs. Each image represented a moment when I'd felt completely present, completely myself. While gathering my camera equipment, I noticed my old journals on Ryan's nightstand, the ones where I'd written about films, books, music that moved me. Had he been reading them? The front door opened. My heart raced as Ryan's footsteps approached. You're here. He stood in the doorway, still in his work clothes. I was hoping you'd come back. Just getting some things, I said, continuing to pack. Ryan's eyes fell on the open box of photographs. What are you doing with those? Taking them with me. All of them? Babe, be reasonable. Where would you even put them? I stopped packing and looked at him directly. That's the first question you ask? Not why I want them back? He sighed, loosening his tie. Look, I've been thinking about what you said. I didn't realize I was being so critical. Sometimes I'm just joking around. Jokes are supposed to be funny, Ryan, not make someone feel small. I never meant to make you feel small, he insisted, sitting on the bed. He hesitated. You just what? I guess I never understood why these things matter so much to you. The simplicity of his statement stunned me. 5 years together, and he'd never tried to understand what made me tick, what brought me joy. Did you read my journals? I asked, noticing again how they sat on his nightstand. He looked momentarily caught off guard. I just wanted to understand why you were so upset. Those are private. We're in a relationship. I didn't think there were secrets. They're not secrets, Ryan. They're parts of myself I stopped sharing because you made me feel stupid every time. I did. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. So what now? You're leaving me because I don't like the same childish things you do? The word childish hung between us. Even now, in this moment of supposed reconciliation, he couldn't help himself. No, I said quietly. I'm leaving because you don't respect who I am. That's not fair. When we met, I continued, I told you about standing in line for 8 hours for a book signing. Remember what you said? He shook his head. You said I was wasting my time on fiction when there are real problems in the world. That was our 3rd date, Ryan. I should have recognized the red flag then. It's just my opinion, he defended. Opinions are fine. Constant judgment isn't. I zipped up my camera bag. Did you ever consider that these childish things help people process those real-world problems? That maybe fantasy and art, and yes, even reality cooking shows help people find meaning or just moments of joy in a difficult world? Ryan was silent, watching as I gathered my things. I'm staying at Emma's for a while longer, I said. I need to think about what I want. What you want, he repeated, a bitter edge to his voice. What about what I want? That's all our relationship has been about, Ryan. What you want, what you approve of, what you think is worth my time. As I headed for the door, he called after me. I'll change. I'll try to understand your weird hobbies. I turned back one final time. They're not weird hobbies, Ryan. They're my passions. And they're not what you need to understand. It's me you never took the time to know. Back at Emma's, I spread my photographs across her living room floor. Each image represented a moment I'd felt connected to the world, to myself. These are incredible, Emma said, examining a black and white portrait of an elderly man feeding pigeons. You need to start shooting again. I'm not sure I remember how, I admitted. Emma picked up my camera from the bag and placed it in my hands. Like riding a bike. The question is whether you want to. Did I? The weight of the camera felt both foreign and familiar. I lifted it to my eye, adjusting the focus on Emma's face. The soft click of the shutter felt like coming home. There's a photography exhibition next weekend at the West Side Gallery, Emma mentioned casually. Some local artists. We should go. The old me would have jumped at the chance. The new, quieter me hesitated, hearing Ryan's voice in my head. Amateur photographers thinking they're artists. Emma seemed to read my thoughts. He's not here, you know. His voice doesn't get to live in your head rent-free anymore. She was right. I'd given Ryan power over my joy for too long. Let's go, I said, feeling something unfurl inside me, a cautious hope. That night, Ryan called again. I found your fantasy books, he said without preamble. I'm going to read them. Why? To understand you better. Isn't that what you want? I closed my eyes, suddenly exhausted. Ryan, you shouldn't have to force yourself to appreciate the things I love. So what am I supposed to do? Frustration edged his voice. I don't know, I answered honestly. But I do know I can't come home feeling like I need to hide parts of myself anymore. After we hung up, I added another photograph to Emma's refrigerator, the first new one I'd taken in over a year. It captured Emma laughing as she tried to organize the mess of my belongings in her apartment. It wasn't technically perfect, but it was real, authentic, mine. Was my relationship with Ryan worth saving? I still didn't know, but something else had become crystal clear. I was worth saving. The passionate, talkative, weird parts of me deserved to exist without apology. As I fell asleep that night, I realized I hadn't felt this light in years. Sometimes the heaviest thing we carry isn't what others think of us. It's what we've been convinced to think of ourselves. A week passed at Emma's apartment. My camera became an extension of myself again, documenting morning light on coffee cups, strangers waiting for buses, Emma's cat stretching in sunbeams. Each photograph felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Ryan texted daily with updates on his progress reading my fantasy series. On Chapter 3, the dragon stuff is actually better than I expected. His attempts at appreciation felt forced, performative, too little, too late. Emma and I attended the photography exhibition that Saturday. The gallery buzzed with conversations about composition, lighting techniques, artistic vision, discussions I'd once participated in eagerly before learning to quiet myself. Olivia? A tall woman with silver-streaked hair approached me. Olivia Chen. I thought that was you. Professor Winters. My photography mentor from college whose advanced class I'd abandoned after Ryan questioned whether I was wasting money on a hobby. It's been what, 3 years? She asked, genuine warmth in her expression. Are you still shooting? I took a break, I admitted. But I'm starting again. Good. She nodded decisively. You had a unique eye. I always wondered why you disappeared. Emma nudged me encouragingly. Actually, I stopped because the words caught in my throat. Someone important to me didn't think it was worthwhile. Professor Winters' expression shifted to something between disappointment and anger. And now? Now I'm remembering it's not their opinion that matters. She smiled. In that case, we're having a small showcase of alumni work next month. Nothing fancy, just a celebration of different perspectives. You should submit something. My heart raced at the possibility. I don't know if I'm ready. Nobody's ever ready? She interrupted gently. That's why we need deadlines. Think about it. After she walked away, Emma squeezed my arm. You have to do it. I haven't created anything worth showing in years. Then you have exactly 1 month to change that, she replied matter-of-factly. We wandered through the remaining exhibits, pausing before a collection of urban decay photographs that reminded me of my earlier work. The photographer had captured beauty and abandonment, peeling paint revealing layers of history, nature reclaiming man-made structures. These are gorgeous, Emma whispered. They know how to see what others miss, I agreed. A voice behind us added, That's what separates photographers from people who just take pictures. I turned to find a man with kind eyes and paint-splattered jeans examining the same photograph. He extended his hand. Daniel, I teach art therapy at the community center. Olivia, I used to be a photographer. Used to be? Daniel raised an eyebrow. That sounds like a story. Before I could respond, Emma's phone chimed. It's Ryan, she murmured, showing me the screen. He's outside the gallery. Says he needs to talk to you. My stomach tightened. Now? Go, Daniel said, stepping back. Sounds important. Sorry, I apologized, feeling strangely disappointed as we exchanged quick goodbyes. Outside, Ryan leaned against his car, looking uncharacteristically disheveled. He held my fantasy books in his arms, all 5 volumes. I finished them, he announced as I approached. All of them? In a week? That's over 2,000 pages. I didn't sleep much. Dark circles beneath his eyes confirmed this. I needed to understand. Understand what? Why these matter to you? He gestured with the books. The marginalia helped. Your notes about resilience in impossible situations. How chosen family can be stronger than blood ties. The way you connected characters. Struggles to your own. For once, he wasn't mocking. He sounded thoughtful, even respectful. I never realized how deeply you think about these things, he continued. I dismissed them without trying to see them through your eyes. He hesitated before adding, I think I was jealous. Jealous? Of books? Of your passion? Ryan's admission seemed to surprise even himself. You get so excited about things, photography, books, music, you dive in completely. I've never felt that way about anything. The realization hit me. Ryan didn't belittle my interests because he thought they were childish. He did it because he couldn't understand that depth of enthusiasm. That's why I came tonight, he said. To see you in your element, to try understanding instead of judging. Part of me wanted to be moved by his effort. Another part wondered if this revelation came too late. Ryan, I'm not asking you to come home, he interrupted. Not yet. He struggled visibly with his words. I want a chance to know the real you, the one who writes brilliant observations in book margins and sees beauty where others don't. Emma touched my arm gently. I'll be inside when you're ready. After she left, Ryan and I walked to a nearby park, sitting on a bench beneath flickering streetlights. I found your photography portfolio, he admitted. The one you submitted for that fellowship 3 years ago. My breath caught. Where? Back of the closet. I was looking for your other books. That portfolio represented the last serious work I'd done before letting my passion fade. The rejection letter had come the same day Ryan had made an offhand comment about real careers versus hobbies. The timing had seemed like confirmation that I should focus on more practical pursuits. Your Urban Decay series, the abandoned factory with light streaming through broken windows? It was breathtaking. His voice softened. Why did you stop? Because you made me feel foolish for caring about it, I answered honestly. After a while, it was easier to be quiet than to defend everything I loved. Ryan flinched. I never thought of myself as someone who would silence another person. Sometimes we don't recognize the impact of our words. We sat in silence, watching a nighttime dog walker pass by. The distance between us felt both vast and necessary. Finally, Ryan spoke. Again. I talked to my sister about all this. She said I've always been dismissive of things I don't immediately understand. A defense mechanism, apparently. That sounds like Diane. I smiled slightly, always appreciative of his sister's directness. She also said I'm an idiot who doesn't deserve you, he added ruefully. That part was less helpful. Despite everything, I laughed. Your sister has good taste. Look, Ryan set the books carefully between us. I don't expect you to come home tonight, but I want you to know I'm working on myself. Not just for us, but because I don't want to be the kind of person who makes others feel small. His sincerity seemed genuine, but I'd been fooled by temporary improvements before. I met someone tonight, I said suddenly. Not like that. Just someone who reminded me how it feels to talk about photography without apologizing. For my enthusiasm, Ryan's jaw tightened briefly before he nodded. You deserve that. People who appreciate what makes you light up. I picked up my books, tracing my fingertips over their worn spines. I need more time, Ryan. I understand. He stood, hands in his pockets. For what it's worth, the third book was actually my favorite. The part where the protagonist realizes her supposed weakness, her sensitivity, becomes her greatest strength. That felt important. He walked away before I could respond, leaving me stunned on the park bench. Of all the passages to mention, he'd chosen the one that had carried me through my darkest days. When I returned to the gallery, the crowd had thinned. Emma was chatting with Daniel in the corner. Everything okay? She asked as I approached. I think so. Just complicated. Daniel smiled sympathetically. The best things usually are. We exchanged phone numbers before leaving. For photography discussions, he clarified. His easy acceptance of my passion, without judgment or forced enthusiasm, felt refreshing. That night, I couldn't sleep. I scrolled through my recent photographs, then impulsively opened my email and found Professor Winter's contact information. Before I could second-guess myself, I sent her a message asking about the alumni showcase requirements. Her response came minutes later, despite the late hour. Just bring something true. The rest is technique. Something true. Not perfect or sophisticated or impressive. Just honest. I knew then what my submission would be. Not spectacular landscapes or technical masterpieces, but something more personal. A series documenting my emergence from silence, the discarded camera gathering dust, the boxes of photographs hidden under the bed, the first new image on Emma's refrigerator. Each photograph telling part of a story about losing and reclaiming one's voice. As dawn approached, I realized I hadn't thought about Ryan's opinion of the project even once. Whether we reconciled or not, I had already taken back something essential, the right to love what I loved without apology. The journey back to myself had begun. 3 weeks passed in a blur of creativity and rediscovery. My photography series, Unsilenced, took shape, each image representing something I'd loved and hidden, now reclaimed. The vintage postcard collection, my well-worn fantasy novels, the indie band concert tickets I'd kept in a memory box. Ryan and I established cautious communication. Coffee once a week. Short walks in neutral territory. He was trying, reading books I'd recommended, asking questions about my photography, actually listening to my answers. But something fundamental had shifted inside me. The quiet girl who nodded along with his opinions felt like a stranger now, i.e. Submitted my work for the alumni showcase, I told him during one of our coffee meetings. His face brightened genuinely. That's incredible, Liv. When is it? Next Friday. Professor Winters already accepted the series. I hesitated before adding, "You can come if you want." "Are you sure?" "As friends," I clarified. "I'm still figuring things out." The truth was more complicated. Daniel had become a regular presence in my life. Not quite romantic yet, but something warming between us. He'd introduced me to his art therapy students, and I'd started volunteering, teaching basic photography techniques to teenagers working through trauma. Their unfiltered enthusiasm reminded me how it felt to love something, without self-consciousness. "Daniel mentioned you've been helping at the community center," Ryan said casually, though I detected the strain in his voice. "How did you know about that?" "Emma mentioned it." He stirred his coffee unnecessarily. "He seems like a good guy." "He is." I didn't elaborate further. Ryan nodded slowly. "I'm glad you have people who support your passions." The sincerity in his voice surprised me. The old Ryan would have made a dismissive comment about charity work or questioned my qualifications to teach. "I've been thinking about what you said," he continued, "about not recognizing the impact of our words. I found a therapist, 2 sessions so far." "That's unexpected." "Good unexpected?" "Just unexpected." I smiled cautiously. "What made you decide to go?" He looked down at his hands. "I realized I learned this behavior from my father. Everything my mother loved, cooking shows, gardening, mystery novels, he treated like they were beneath him. I never wanted to be that kind of partner, but somehow I became him anyway." The admission hung between us, raw and honest. For the first time, I saw Ryan truly vulnerable, confronting patterns he'd never acknowledged before. "That's brave," I said finally, recognizing those patterns. "Not brave enough," he replied. "Not soon enough." The week before the exhibition, I moved my remaining belongings out of our shared apartment. Ryan helped in silence, respecting my decision to take a small studio across town. The physical separation felt necessary, a concrete representation of the space I needed to rediscover myself completely. "I left something for you," he said as I prepared to leave for the final time. In the bedroom, on the wall where bland, sophisticated art had hung, he'd mounted 3 of my photographs: the lighthouse at dawn, my grandmother's hands, rain-slicked streets reflecting neon. A small note beneath them read simply, "These always belonged here." The gesture nearly broke me, not because it changed my decision, but because it showed he finally understood what I'd been trying to tell him all along. Exhibition night arrived with nervous energy. My photographs hung in careful sequence, the story of a voice diminished, then reclaimed. The final image showed my camera reflected in a mirror, me behind it, face partially visible, expression serene and determined. "You captured it perfectly," Professor Winters said, standing beside me. "The journey back to yourself." Friends arrived in supportive clusters. Emma brought champagne. My parents drove 3 hours to attend, my mother tearing up before the photos, recognizing the story they told without needing explanation. Ryan arrived alone, standing tentatively at the entrance until I waved him over. He moved through the exhibition slowly, absorbing each image, lingering longest before a photograph of my fantasy book stacked beside reading glasses and a half-empty teacup. Simple objects representing stolen moments of joy. "These are stunning, Liv," he said when he finally approached. "Honestly, I'm in awe. Thank you." The words came easily, without the need for his validation that once seemed so crucial. Daniel joined us, camera hanging around his neck. "Your series is the highlight of the show. Everyone's talking about it." Ryan extended his hand. "You must be Daniel. I've heard good things." The tension I expected never materialized. Instead, there was a surprising grace in Ryan's acknowledgement of Daniel's place in my life. As the evening progressed, I circulated among guests, answering questions about my technique and inspiration. For the first time in years, I spoke without filtering my enthusiasm, without worrying that my passion might be too much. Near closing, Professor Winters gathered everyone's attention. I'm pleased to announce that Olivia Chen's Unsilenced series has been selected for our traveling exhibition. Congratulations, Olivia. The room erupted in applause. Shock rendered me speechless as friends embraced me, offering congratulations. Ryan caught my eye across the room, offering a thumbs up and genuine smile. Later, as the crowd thinned, Ryan approached again. I couldn't be prouder of you, he said quietly. I just wish I'd supported you like this from the beginning. Me too, I admitted. But maybe this is how it needed to happen. Sometimes we need to lose our voice completely before we understand its value. He nodded, understanding the subtext of my words. What had broken between us couldn't be repaired with a few weeks of effort, no matter how sincere. Will you keep in touch? He asked. Let me know about your future exhibitions. I'd like that, I said, meaning it. After Ryan left, Daniel helped me gather my belongings. You're glowing tonight, he observed. It suits you. I feel like myself. Again, more than that, a better version of myself. In my new apartment that night, I sat surrounded by unpacked boxes, my camera beside me. On the wall hung a corkboard already crowded with ideas for new projects, visual essays, community workshops, collaborative series, possibilities that would have seemed impossible months ago when I'd been silencing myself to avoid criticism. My phone lit up with a message from Ryan. Just wanted to say again how proud I am. Your work deserves to be seen. I'm sorry I ever made you feel otherwise. I responded simply, thank you for coming tonight. It meant a lot. No declarations of continued love, no promises of reunion, just acknowledgement of the moment we'd shared, the closure beginning to form. Another message followed, this time from Daniel. A few of us are meeting tomorrow to photograph the sunrise at Miller's Point. Interested? I smiled, typing back. Absolutely. The quiet girl who had learned to shrink, herself was gone. In her place stood someone who recognized that passion isn't something to apologize for. It's the purest expression of who we are. My relationship with Ryan had taught me something invaluable. Love should never require you to be less. True connection comes from being seen fully and celebrated for the very things that make you uniquely yourself. As I finally unpacked my camera equipment in my new space, I realized that the most important relationship I'd needed to repair wasn't with Ryan at all. It was with myself. The journey back from silence hadn't been about finding my voice again. It had been about remembering that it was always worth hearing. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us. 6 months after the exhibition, my life had transformed in ways I couldn't have imagined. The traveling exhibition had opened doors, a small photography grant, freelance assignments for local magazines, a part-time position teaching introductory photography at the community college. My voice, once muffled to a whisper, now resonated through my work and teaching. Hold the camera like it's an extension of your eye, I instructed a class of first-year students. The viewfinder isn't just showing you what's there, it's revealing what you choose to see. After class, I checked my phone to find a message from Professor Winters. Need to speak with you urgently. Good news. We met at a cafe near campus, autumn leaves swirling around outdoor tables. The Portland Contemporary Arts Center wants to feature your Unsilenced series, she announced without preamble. Plus 5 new pieces that continue the narrative. My coffee cup froze midway to my lips. Portland? That's a major venue. They're doing an exhibition on visual storytelling and personal transformation. Your work is perfect. She slid a formal invitation across the table. They need an answer by Friday. 5 new pieces, I repeated. What continuation? Professor Winters smiled. That's entirely up to you. Where has your journey taken you since finding your voice again? The question lingered as I walked home through a neighborhood I'd photographed countless times, familiar streets now seen through new eyes. My phone buzzed with a message from Daniel. Dinner tonight? I have news too. Daniel and I had grown closer over the months, our relationship evolving from professional respect to friendship to something deeper. He understood intuitively what Ryan had taken years to grasp, that my passions weren't childish distractions but fundamental parts of who I was. At dinner, Daniel revealed his own news. The community center had received funding to expand their art therapy program. They want me to develop a photography component, he explained, eyes bright with excitement. I immediately thought of your work with the teens. Are you offering me a job? I asked, smiling. A collaboration, he clarified. Equal partners. Your technical expertise, my therapeutic approach. I told him about the Portland exhibition, watching his face light up with genuine pride. No trace of the jealousy or dismissiveness that had once been my norm. This calls for a celebration, he declared, ordering champagne. Later that night, as we walked along the riverfront, Daniel stopped beneath a streetlight. There's something else, he said, suddenly serious. I've been offered a position in Seattle. 6-month residency teaching art therapy techniques at a children's hospital. My stomach dropped. Seattle. It's an incredible opportunity, he continued. But I wanted to talk to you before deciding. When would you leave? January. He took my hand. I know we've only been together a few months, but you should take it, I interrupted. It's exactly what you've been working toward. Daniel studied my face. That's not what I was going to ask. I was wondering if you'd consider coming with me. The question hung in the cool night air. 6 months ago, I would have immediately calculated how to make myself smaller to fit someone else's dreams. Now, I recognized the invitation wasn't asking me to diminish. It was offering space to grow alongside someone. I need some time to think, I answered honestly. Daniel nodded. Take all the time you need. At home, I spread photographs across my floor. The entire Unsilenced series plus, dozens taken since, images capturing my expanding world, Daniel teaching teenagers to frame shots, Emma celebrating her promotion, my new apartment filled with plants and art, and surprisingly, a few recent ones of Ryan. We'd maintained a cautious friendship. Occasional coffee, texts about photography exhibitions, brief updates on our lives. He'd continued therapy, started dating someone new, seemed genuinely happier. Our last meeting had been significant enough that I'd photographed him from across the cafe, head thrown back in laughter, more relaxed than I'd ever seen him during. Our relationship. That photograph held the seed of one of my 5 new pieces, not about romantic reconciliation, but about mutual growth and forgiveness. About people who enter our lives for reasons that become clear only in retrospect. I called Emma, needing her practical wisdom. Seattle, she repeated after I explained. With Daniel, after knowing him less than a year. It sounds crazy when you put it that way. Not crazy, she corrected, just fast. But maybe that's okay. The question isn't about timing. It's about whether this relationship supports who you really are. He does, I said softly. He celebrates all the parts of me Ryan tried to change. Then the only question is whether you're ready for a new adventure. The Portland exhibition and Seattle opportunity collided in my mind, creating both conflict and clarity. I spent the night sketching concepts for my 5 new pieces, the narrative taking shape. Emergence, connection, choice, growth, possibility. The final piece would remain unshot until I made my decision. Morning light filtered through my curtains as inspiration struck. I grabbed my camera and drove to the lighthouse Emma had mentioned months ago, the first photograph Ryan had dismissed, the beginning of my silence. The tide was coming in, waves crashing against rocks as sunrise painted the horizon. But I didn't photograph the lighthouse this time. Instead, I turned my camera toward the vast open sea, focusing on the horizon line where water met sky, endless possibility stretching beyond what was immediately visible. This would be my fifth piece, not an ending, but an opening. When I returned, "Home," I called Daniel. "I've been thinking about Seattle." "And?" Anxiety tinged his voice. "I want to go," I said. "But not just as your partner. I need to build something of my own there, too." "Of course," he said immediately. "The Community Arts Network is incredible. I already have contacts who'd love to meet you. And with the Portland exhibition on your resume." I smiled at his automatic support, so different from what I'd grown accustomed to. "There's something else. I need to finish my Portland pieces first, and I might need to travel back occasionally for exhibitions." "We'll make it work," Daniel said simply. "Your career matters as much as mine." After we hung up, I called Professor Winters to accept the Portland invitation, then began preparing my proposal, 5 new pieces continuing the journey of reclamation, culminating in that horizon shot representing future possibilities. Weeks later, as I finalized details for both Portland and Seattle, Ryan texted asking to meet. We chose a neutral location, the art museum where Daniel and I had first connected. "You're moving to Seattle," Ryan said as we sat before a Rothko painting. News traveled fast in our social circle. "In January," I confirmed. "With Daniel." Ryan nodded slowly. "I'm happy for you, Liv. Really." "Are you?" I studied his face, finding genuine acceptance where I'd once expected possession. "I am." He smiled, ruefully. "My therapist says that's growth." We laughed together, the sound echoing in the quiet gallery. "I've been seeing someone too," he offered. "Claire, she's a literature professor. Fantasy fiction, actually." "Seriously?" I couldn't hide. "My surprise. She's helping me understand what I missed in all those books you loved." His expression softened. "She's patient with me, challenges me when I get dismissive. Reminds me a lot of you, actually." "I'd like to meet her someday," I said, meaning it. As we wandered through exhibits, our conversation flowed more easily than it had during our relationship. Without the pressure of romantic expectations, we'd found a different kind of connection, one built on mutual respect for who we'd become. "I have something for you," I said as we prepared to leave. I handed him an envelope containing a photograph, the one I'd taken of him laughing in the cafe months earlier. "What's this for?" he asked, studying the image. "It's part of my Portland series. Growth. I wanted you to have the original." His eyes widened in understanding. "I'm in your exhibition?" "A small but important part," I confirmed. "You were instrumental in my journey, both the silencing and the rediscovery." Ryan blinked rapidly, emotion crossing his face. "I don't deserve to be portrayed positively after how I treated you." "This isn't about what either of us deserves," I said gently. "It's about acknowledging that people can change, that relationships, even failed ones, can teach us something valuable." As we said goodbye outside the museum, Ryan hugged me briefly. "Seattle's lucky to get you, Liv. Don't let anyone quiet you again, not even yourself." The months before Seattle passed in a creative blur. I completed my 5 new pieces for Portland, taught my final semester at the community college, and helped Daniel prepare our transition. Emma threw a combination farewell exhibition preview party where friends gathered to celebrate both my departure and artistic achievement. The night before the Portland exhibition opening, I stood in my nearly packed apartment surrounded by labeled boxes and empty walls. My phone chimed with a message from Daniel. "Everything's set for our Seattle apartment. Can't wait to build something new with you." I smiled, setting my phone down to finish wrapping my grandmother's ceramic mug, one of the few sentimental objects I couldn't bear to leave behind. As I worked, I reflected on the 18 months since that dinner when Ryan had mocked my superhero movie enthusiasm. The journey from silence to voice hadn't been linear. There had been setbacks, moments of doubt, old habits resurfacing, but with each photograph, each class taught, each genuine conversation, I'd rebuilt my relationship with myself, learning that my passions weren't just acceptable, but essential. Morning. Light streamed through windows as I prepared for Portland. My exhibition pieces were already installed, 10 photographs telling the story of a woman who lost her voice and found it again stronger than before. The final image of the horizon represented not just my future, but a universal truth. There is always more beyond what we can currently see. I stood before my bathroom mirror, no longer recognizing the quiet girl who had once filtered her enthusiasm to avoid ridicule. In her place was someone who understood that true connection, romantic or otherwise, should never require diminishment. My phone rang, Emma calling for last-minute encouragement before the drive to Portland. "Ready for your big debut?" she asked. "More than ready," I replied, voice strong and clear. "I've got a lot to say."